Have you ever wondered why some people seem to carry peace even when life becomes difficult? Why they remain hopeful during uncertainty, grateful during hardship, and joyful even when circumstances are far from perfect? Most people spend their lives searching for happiness in the next achievement, the next relationship, the next opportunity, or the next possession. They believe that abundance is something waiting somewhere in the future, yet the more they chase it, the farther away it seems to become. What if the greatest secret taught by Jesus was not about obtaining more, but about awakening something that already exists within you? What if one ancient Aramaic word contained an entirely different understanding of joy, peace, and abundance? The word is TOOBA. Most people have never heard it. Even fewer understand its deeper meaning. Yet this sacred word appears at the very beginning of some of the most powerful teachings associated with Jesus. Over time, translations simplified its meaning. Layers of wisdom were lost. What remained was only a small glimpse of something much greater. Tonight, we are going to uncover why TOOBA was never merely a blessing. It was a state of being, a way of seeing life, a doorway into the kingdom that Jesus taught was already present within. And before this message ends, you may discover that the abundance you have been searching for has been closer than you ever imagined. To understand TOOBA, we must first step into the world where Jesus lived and taught. The language of his daily life was Aramaic, a language rich with meanings that often extended far beyond what a single English word can express. When modern readers encounter translations of his teachings, they are often seeing only a fraction of the original depth. One of the most famous examples appears in the Bible. Most English Bibles begin with the phrase, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," yet the Aramaic word behind this idea is closely connected to TOOBA. While many translations render it simply as blessed, the original meaning is much larger and more alive. TOOBA carries the sense of deep inner flourishing. It describes a state where the soul is aligned with divine reality. It is not temporary happiness. It is not excitement based on circumstances. It is a condition of inner abundance that remains available even when external conditions are uncertain. This understanding changes everything. Modern culture teaches people to seek fulfillment outside themselves. More success, more possessions, more recognition, more certainty. Yet the teachings of Jesus repeatedly point in the opposite direction. Again and again, he directs attention inward, toward a reality already present within the human heart. This is why the kingdom of heaven occupies such a central place in his message. According to the teachings associated with Jesus, the kingdom is not merely a future destination. It is a present reality waiting to be recognized. When viewed through the lens of TOOBA, abundance is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you awaken to. Joy is no longer dependent on conditions. Peace is no longer dependent on circumstances. The soul begins to recognize the gifts already placed within it. Perhaps this is why so many people possess more than previous generations ever imagined, yet still feel empty. They have been searching externally for what can only be discovered internally. The deeper meaning of TOOBA becomes even more powerful when we examine what it is not. It is not wealth alone. It is not comfort alone. It is not success alone. Many people achieve these things and still remain restless. They continue searching because something essential is missing. The ancient Aramaic understanding recognized that abundance without inner alignment can never create lasting fulfillment. This is where the teachings of Jesus become remarkably relevant to modern life. He spoke to people living under pressure, uncertainty, and hardship. Yet his message continually emphasized the possibility of discovering a different source of strength, a source that did not depend on external circumstances. The word TOOBA points directly toward that source. Imagine waking each morning already aware of the gifts present within your life. Imagine beginning the day from gratitude rather than lack. Imagine seeing abundance, not as something withheld from you, but as something already flowing through creation. This perspective does not deny challenges. It does not ignore difficulties. Instead, it changes the lens through which those challenges are viewed. The person living in TOOBA no longer measures life solely by what is missing. They begin to recognize what is present. The result is profound. Fear loses some of its power. Scarcity loses some of its influence. Anxiety loosens its grip. the heart becomes more receptive to joy, peace, and trust. And this is only the beginning, because in the chapters ahead, we will discover how TOOBA connects directly to Shlama Abwen and the hidden teachings of the kingdom within. And at the end of this journey, I will share a complete prayer that brings these ancient Aramaic words together into a powerful spiritual practice that may transform the way you see yourself, your life, and your relationship with the divine. But if something in you is saying yes, the study guides are pinned comment, and the best is yet to come in the next chapters. You'll discover what could change everything for you. To fully understand TOOBA, we must move beyond the idea of blessing and begin seeing it as a spiritual state. Most people imagine abundance as something external. They think of money, possessions, opportunities, or favorable circumstances. Yet the teachings associated with Jesus point towards something far deeper. The people who gathered around Jesus came from every walk of life. Some were fishermen, some were laborers, some struggled with poverty, others carried emotional wounds, fear, and uncertainty. Yet when Jesus spoke about the kingdom, he rarely focused on changing external conditions first. Instead, he focused on transforming the inner condition of the heart. This is where TOOBA becomes revolutionary. A person living in TOOBA does not deny life's difficulties. They simply refuse to allow difficulties to become the source of their identity. Their joy is no longer dependent upon circumstances. Their peace is no longer dependent upon outcomes. Their sense of abundance is no longer dependent upon what they possess. Imagine how much energy people spend focusing on what they lack. More money, more security, more recognition, more certainty. Entire lives can be consumed by the pursuit of what is missing, yet the more attention is placed on absence, the more absence seems to grow. The ancient Aramaic perspective offered another way. Instead of beginning with lack, begin with awareness. Instead of beginning with fear, begin with gratitude. Instead of beginning with scarcity, begin with the recognition that life itself is already a gift. This does not mean challenges disappear overnight. It means the soul stops measuring its worth through those challenges. The person begins seeing abundance, not as something waiting in the future, but as something already flowing through creation in the present moment. Perhaps this is why the teachings of Jesus continue to inspire people across centuries. They remind us that transformation begins within. The outer world may change later. The inner world must awaken first. The connection between TOOBA, Shlama, and Abwen reveals one of the most beautiful patterns in Aramaic spirituality. Abun points toward the divine source, not a distant force separated from creation, but the sacred presence breathing life through all things. It reminds us that we are not disconnected from the source of life. We are already participating in it. Shlama represents wholeness, not merely peace, but harmony, completeness, and alignment. It is the experience of living in balance with the deeper reality that Jesus continually pointed toward. And then comes TOOBA, the natural result of remembering the source and returning to wholeness. Many people attempt to achieve TOOBA directly. They chase happiness. They pursue abundance. They search endlessly for fulfillment. Yet the ancient path teaches that joy emerges naturally when alignment is restored. Think about a tree growing beside a river. It does not struggle to produce fruit every moment of every day. The fruit appears because the tree remains connected to its source of nourishment. In the same way, the soul connected to Abun and grounded in Shlama naturally begins expressing TOOBA. This perspective changes how we view abundance. Abundance becomes less about accumulation and more about alignment. It becomes less about getting and more about receiving, less about striving and more about awakening. The teachings associated with Jesus repeatedly invite people into this realization. The kingdom is not somewhere else. It is not reserved for another time. It is a reality that becomes visible when consciousness awakens to what has always been present. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this teaching is that it remains available right now. Not after you become perfect, not after every problem is solved, not after life becomes easy. Right now, because TOOBA begins the moment the soul remembers who it truly is. If the awakening of consciousness is hitting you hard, it's a sign that you're ready to go deeper. The study guides are waiting for you in the pinned comments. The ancient teachings surrounding TOOBA were never meant to remain ideas stored in the mind. They were designed to become lived experiences. This is why many spiritual traditions connected to the world of Jesus included spoken prayers. Words were not merely information. They were reminders that directed consciousness back toward divine reality. As Weabishen, Abwan points toward the source. Shlama points toward wholeness. TOOBA points toward the joyful flourishing that emerges when the soul aligns with both. Together they form a path that leads away from fear and toward trust. This understanding becomes especially important because modern life constantly encourages people to focus on what is missing. News, advertising, and social pressures often reinforce the idea that fulfillment lies somewhere outside ourselves. The result is a constant sense of striving. Yet the teachings associated with Jesus suggest something radically different. The kingdom is already present. The source is already present. The possibility of peace is already present. The possibility of abundance is already present. The soul simply needs to awaken to what has always been there. This is why I invite you now to listen carefully to the following prayer. Do not approach it merely as words. Allow it to become a declaration of alignment. Allow it to become a remembrance of what already exists within you. A prayer of receiving Abwendebo, Father who breathes through all creation. Today, I come before you not with a list of what I lack, but with an open heart, ready at last to recognize what you have always placed within me. I speak TOOBA over my joy. May it arise from within, independent of what surrounds me. I speak TOOBA over my peace. May Shlama become not a feeling I seek, but the foundation upon which I stand. I speak TOOBA over my abundance, not as something I must earn or prove, but as the natural overflow of a soul aligned with its source. As Jesus taught in Matthew chapter 5, the kingdom is not something yet to come. It is already here. Within those who are willing to receive it, I am willing. I am ready. I receive TOOBA. Shlama Abun, in the name of Yeshua. Amen. Take a moment now and notice how different this prayer feels from many modern approaches to spirituality. It does not begin with requests. It does not focus on what is absent. It does not emphasize lack, struggle, or insufficiency. Instead, it begins with recognition. Recognition of the source. Recognition of peace. Recognition of abundance. Recognition of what has already been placed within the soul. This may be one of the greatest forgotten teachings associated with Jesus. The transformation of consciousness begins when attention shifts away from scarcity and toward awareness. What we consistently focus on shapes the way we experience reality. A person focused entirely on what is missing rarely experiences fulfillment. A person who begins to recognize the gifts already present discovers a very different relationship with life. Gratitude deepens, trust expands, fear loses influence, joy becomes more natural. This is the hidden movement of TOOBA. Not forced positivity, not denial of difficulties, but the recognition that divine abundance is greater than temporary circumstances. As you move forward from this message, I invite you to return to these three words. Often Abwin, remember the source. Shlama, return to wholeness. TOOBA. Allow joy, peace, and abundance to emerge naturally from alignment. The more these truths move from the mind into daily experience, the more life begins to change. Not because circumstances instantly transform, but because the person experiencing those circumstances transforms first. That is where every lasting spiritual awakening begins. I am glad you are here, and I mean that deeply. The fact that you are seeking this knowledge tells me everything about where you are in your journey. Study guides with deeper teachings are waiting for you in the pinned comment below. With gratitude for walking this path together, and before you leave, we would love to hear from you. If you felt a shift in your energy, gained a new insight, or experienced an inner awakening during this message, write the word restoration in the comments below. Your testimony may inspire and encourage many others who are also seeking light, knowledge, and renewal in their lives. Thank you for being here and for opening your hearts to this ancient wisdom. Your presence in this space is not accidental. It is part of your own journey of growth and transformation. It is an honor to walk this path of discovery alongside you. Until the next revelation, walk in peace, walk in freedom, walk in TOOBA.